Are you serious? The Indiana Fever just lost Justine Passat to the Las Vegas Aces, and forget what her signing. It's official now. Chloe Peterson just put out that the Indiana Fever will not be countering the offer from the Aces. They're letting her walk so they could keep Dantes. What is going on?
Watch that reaction again. That's not disappointment, that's pure disgust. That's the look of a fan watching their front office make a choice that doesn't just seem wrong. It makes you question whether anyone in the building understands basketball. Because on January 14, 2025, the Indiana Fever made a decision that might define their entire era around Caitlin Clark. They let a 6'4" sharpshooter with a 7-foot wingspan walk straight to the defending champion Las Vegas Aces. Her name is Justine Passat. The reason they let her go? So they could keep a 32-year-old backup center who averaged 3 points and 1 rebound in the playoffs. This isn't just a bad decision. This is organizational malpractice, and what you're about to hear is how a front office managed to waste an opportunity that could have changed everything.
This was from Chloe Peterson. Per the WNBA transactions page, the Las Vegas Aces have tendered an offer sheet to the Fever developmental player Justine Passat. The Fever had 24 hours to respond, putting her on a standard roster. But then she just put this up. I'm told, per league sources, the Fever will not be countering Passat's offer sheet from the Aces. This is crazy. Y'all just let the world champs pick up a 6'4" sniper, a 6'4" shooter with a 7-foot wingspan, because y'all didn't know what the...
Justine Passat is officially gone. The Las Vegas Aces, the defending champions, the organization everyone points to when they talk about roster construction done right, they submitted an offer sheet on January 14th. The Fever had exactly 24 hours to match it to promote Passat from the developmental roster to a standard contract. According to Chloe Peterson's report straight from the WNBA transactions page, Indiana declined. They're letting her walk. They're letting a young, talented, 6'4" sharpshooter with a 7-foot wingspan walk straight to the defending champions so they can keep Damaris Dantas. Let that sink in for a second. Damaris Dantas, a 32-year-old center who in the 2024 playoffs averaged 3 points and 1 rebound per game. That's what the Fever decided was more valuable than developing a young player who fits perfectly with their franchise cornerstone. This isn't just bad, this is the kind of choice that makes you question whether anyone in that front office is actually paying attention to what modern basketball needs.
Justine Passat, congratulations. She'll be making $150,000 for the rest of the season rather than the $700 a week from the Indiana Fever. And she's going to get a chance to actually play for this team. She's going to get a shot to play. Justine Passat just left the Fever for the Aces, dog. Oh. They decided to keep Damaris Dantas, man. They decided to keep Damaris Dantas, y'all. We let her walk. We just let her walk.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Here's what everyone needs to understand about Justine Passat. She's not some random developmental player the Fever were hoping might pan out someday. She's a 6'4" sniper with a 7-foot wingspan, and she was built for exactly what the Fever needed all season long. If you watched any Indiana game last year, you heard the same commentary over and over again from every analyst, every commentator, every person who understands modern basketball. This team has no floor spacing. Caitlin Clark is getting triple-teamed in the paint because defenses don't have to respect Indiana's perimeter shooting. They pack the lane. They dare roll players to beat them from 3, and it works perfectly because nobody's pulling up from distance. That's a nightmare for a player like Clark, who's one of the greatest passers women's basketball has ever seen. She needs shooters to kick to. She needs players who can punish defenses for collapsing on her drives. Without that spacing, you're basically asking your franchise cornerstone to beat 5 defenders by herself. Passat solves that problem. At 6'4", she's not some undersized guard who gets hunted on defense. She's got legitimate size, a 7-foot wingspan that makes her disruptive on the defensive end, and she can pull up from 25 feet. That's the exact profile you need next to a player like Caitlin Clark. You need someone who drags their defender out to the 3-point line, opens up driving lanes, punishes help defense rotations, creates space for the person with the ball in their hands. The Fever had that player sitting on their developmental roster. They could have promoted her at any point during the season. They chose not to. And now, she's wearing a Las Vegas uniform, making $150,000 for the rest of the season instead of the $700 per week Indiana was paying her. The gap between those two numbers tells you everything you need to know about how badly the Fever missed this one.
They let Justine Passat, a 6'4" young sniper with a 7-foot wingspan, they let her walk for Damiris old-ass I can't play no more Dantas. 3 points and a rebound a game. Like, come on, man. You can't be serious. You got this, but this organization is a joke. Justine Passat, and she let it be known earlier in the season that she wasn't looking to stay on a developmental contract. She wanted out of the developmental spot. She did not want that. She said, "I'm not settling for a developmental spot. I want a real roster spot." She let that be known from beginning of the season. The Indiana Fever did nothing. They kept Damiris Dantas, bro. This is crazy.
But here's where this story gets really telling about how the Fever front office actually operates. Justine Passat made it crystal clear back in preseason that she wasn't interested in staying on a developmental contract long-term. She let them know explicitly, "I want a real roster spot. I want an opportunity to prove myself in actual games." And what did Indiana do with that information? Absolutely nothing. They played her in exactly one preseason game against the New York Liberty, 3 minutes of action, and in those 3 minutes she dropped 10 points. She was pulling up from deep, moving without the ball, showing exactly the kind of offensive versatility that modern basketball demands. Then she never saw the court again, not a single minute in any other exhibition game. Why? Because the Fever were trying to hide her. Think about that strategy for a second. You have a developmental player who's clearly talented enough to contribute at the WNBA level. She's shown you in a real game that she can score and space the floor. And instead of showcasing her to build trade value, instead of integrating her into your rotation, you deliberately keep her off the floor so other teams won't notice her. That might be the most backwards roster management philosophy imaginable, and it backfired spectacularly. The Aces noticed anyway. They did their homework. They saw the potential. They saw what the Fever were trying to hide, and the moment they could legally submit an offer sheet, they did. Now Indiana has nothing to show for it except another example of organizational dysfunction and a young player who's about to get real opportunities with a championship program. That's the kind of mistake that haunts a franchise.
With Amber Cox, I can't say I'm surprised, and I told you guys earlier in the playoffs when she played in that preseason game, earlier in the preseason, when she played in that one preseason game versus the New York Liberty, the girl had 10 points in 3 minutes. She was pulling up from deep, and then she never played in any preseason action after that. I told y'all they were trying to hide her. I told y'all they were trying to hide Justine Passat because somebody would come and take her, and Justine Passat is officially gone. Justine Passat is officially gone off the roster for the Indiana.
Let's talk about what the Fever are actually keeping instead of Passat, because this is where the decision goes from questionable to completely indefensible. Damiris Dantas is 32 years old. She's been in the league since 2012. She's a veteran presence, sure, but what is that presence actually contributing on the court? In the 2024 playoffs, Dantas averaged 3 points and 1 rebound per game, 3 and 1. Those are the numbers the Indiana Fever decided are more valuable than developing a young shooter who fits perfectly with their franchise cornerstone. And it's not like Dantas is playing huge minutes to rack up those stats. She's getting spot minutes here and there, mostly in garbage time or when the rotation is dealing with foul trouble. The argument for keeping veterans is usually about leadership and playoff experience. Fine, okay, we get it. But what leadership did Dantas provide when the Fever got swept in the first round? What playoff experience translated into wins? At some point, you have to acknowledge that keeping older players just for the sake of veteran presence is how franchises stay mediocre forever. You can't build a championship team if you're afraid to make difficult roster decisions, and choosing to keep a 32-year-old backup center over a 6'4" shooter is about as difficult and as necessary as roster decisions get.
Refuse to play her. I mean, whatever, man. This team is a clown show. This team is a joke. And it just is what it is, man. It is what it is, man. Justine Passat, go have a time in Vegas with the Aces. You're going to have opportunity to win a world title. You're going to get to play with Asia Wilson, who'll probably be the MVP. And you get to get away from this Stephanie White clown show. You get to get away from this Stephanie White clown show. That is the Indiana Fever. It's ridiculous.
But here's what should really concern anyone paying attention to the Fever organization. This isn't an isolated incident. This is a pattern. Look at how they handled the Kelsey Mitchell situation. Look at their draft strategy. Look at their coaching hires. Look at the choices they've made across the board. Over and over again, this front office makes decisions that suggest they either don't understand modern basketball or they don't care about actually building a championship contender around Caitlin Clark. And there's a crucial difference between those two approaches, a massive difference. Are the Fever building a team designed to maximize Caitlin Clark's generational talent, or are they building a team that just happens to have Caitlin Clark on it? Everything about the Parasot decision suggests it's the latter. Think about what Clark does best. She's one of the greatest passers women's basketball has ever seen. She can thread needles in transition. She can hit cutters with no-look dimes. She can find shooters in the corner off the drive and kick. But all of that requires having shooters to kick to. It requires having players who can punish defenses for collapsing on her drives. Justine Parasot is exactly that type of player. She doesn't need the ball in her hands to be effective. She can relocate to open spots. She can shoot off the catch. She's got the size to finish through contact if defenders close out too aggressively. That's the perfect complementary piece for a point guard like Clark. Instead, the Fever are running lineups with multiple non-shooters clogging the paint, making it easier for defenses to load up on Clark, making their best players' job harder. And when you point this out, when you suggest that maybe they should be thinking about this differently, the response from the front office is basically trust the process. We know what we're doing, except the results say otherwise. The results say they have no idea what they're doing.
Wow. And all we talk about is we need to stretch for. Damn it, I would have took Justine Parasot over Michaela Timpson. Michaela Timpson, they don't guard that girl on offense. I'm sorry. We like KK. I would have rather seen Justine Parasot get a chance to play. When Michaela Timpson is out there, they don't guard her. They don't stand next to her. We needed an actual stretch for, and Justine Parasot could have been perfect next to Caitlin Clark. But
now let's talk about what happens next, because Justine Parasot is walking into an absolutely perfect situation in Las Vegas. The Aces just won back-to-back championships in 2022 and 2023. They've got a Ja Wilson, who's probably going to win her third MVP award. They've got one of the best coaching staffs in the league. They've got a front office that actually understands roster construction, that understands how to develop young players, that understands how to maximize superstar talent by surrounding them with complementary pieces. And now they're adding a 6'4" shooter who can stretch the floor and provide depth at the forward position. Parasot is going to get real minutes in meaningful games. She's going to learn from championship-level veterans. She's going to develop her game in a system that actually values three-point shooting and player development. She's going to go from making $700 a week to making $150,000 for the rest of the season. And she's going to earn that money by actually playing basketball. Meanwhile, the Fever are going to trot out the same roster that got swept in the first round, and hope that Caitlin Clark can drag them to relevance through pure individual brilliance. The Aces saw what the Fever couldn't or wouldn't see.
She's officially staying with the Las Vegas Aces. Amber Cox, Stephanie White, you guys are pure bozos. Get down in the comments. Let me know what you think. This Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share the channel.
But here's what should really worry Fever fans and everyone who cares about the franchise. This decision, this choice to keep Dantas over Parasot, it reveals something dangerous about how the front office thinks. It reveals that they're not serious about maximizing Caitlin Clark's window. It reveals that they're comfortable with mediocrity as long as the team is still competitive enough to make the playoffs and sell tickets. Consider what this looks like from Caitlin Clark's perspective. You're the biggest star in women's basketball right now. You just had one of the most impressive rookie seasons in WNBA history. You carried a franchise to relevance basically by yourself. You showed up as a 22-year-old rookie and elevated an entire organization on your back. In your front office's response, their big move in the offseason is letting a perfect complementary player walk to the defending champions so they can keep a 32-year-old backup center who averages 3 points a game. How does that not make you question whether this organization is serious about winning? How does that not make you wonder if you're going to spend your entire prime trying to overcome front office incompetence? How does that not make you think about whether there might be better situations down the line? These are the questions that lead to players requesting trades. These are the questions that lead to franchise cornerstones considering leaving in free agency. These are the questions that end up haunting organizations for years. And if the Fever don't start making smarter decisions, they're going to find out what happens when generational talent gets tired of carrying organizational dysfunction. There's speculation among insiders that Clark is already watching how the front office operates, noting whether they're serious about surrounding her with talent or just content to let her carry everything herself. Reports suggest that agents in the league are using Indiana as a cautionary tale when discussing young player situations. The whispers are starting, and whispers have a way of becoming roars if nothing changes. The Aces understood what they were getting with Justine Parasot. They saw a young player with size, shooting ability, and upside. They saw someone who could contribute to a championship roster, who could grow within their system, who could be valuable for years to come. They made her an offer, and she took it because why wouldn't she? Why would anyone choose to stay on a developmental contract with a dysfunctional organization when they could make real money playing for the best team in the league? Why would you stay somewhere you're not being developed, not being showcased, not being given a real opportunity, when you could go somewhere that's proven they know how to win championships? That's the part that should embarrass everyone in the Fever front office. They didn't just lose Justine Parasot because of salary constraints or roster limitations or circumstances beyond their control. They lost her because they failed to recognize her value, failed to develop her properly, and failed to make the tough decisions necessary to keep talented young players. They lost her because they were more comfortable keeping someone because they'd always been around than they were with taking a risk on someone new. That's organizational malpractice from top to bottom. Here's the uncomfortable truth that Fever fans need to confront. Caitlin Clark is going to be great no matter what roster you put around her. She's that talented. She's going to put up incredible numbers. She's going to sell out arenas. She's going to be appointment viewing. The question is whether the front office is going to give her the supporting cast she needs to actually win championships, or whether they're going to waste her prime years with mediocre roster construction. Right now, all the evidence points to the latter. The Parasot decision is just the latest example, but it's such a blatant example that it's almost hard to look past. They had a young, talented player who fit perfectly with their best player's skill set, and they chose to let her walk rather than make the tough decision to move on from someone who isn't contributing. That's not championship thinking. That's organizational inertia, the basketball equivalent of we've always done it this way, so why change now? And the worst part is that it was completely avoidable. The Fever could have promoted Parasot at any point. They could have waived Dantas. They had options and they had reasons to exercise those options. They chose not to, now they're paying the price. The Las Vegas Aces just got better. The Indiana Fever just stayed exactly where they are. And Caitlin Clark is stuck in the middle trying to drag a franchise to relevance while the people making decisions seem determined to make her job as difficult as possible. If you're a Fever fan, you should be furious. If you're a Caitlin Clark fan, you should be worried. And if you're Justine Parasot, you should be celebrating because you just escaped organizational dysfunction and landed with a championship program that actually knows what it's doing.